Hey everyone, welcome back to Bagel TCG. Today we're going to be doing a deck tech for Necromancer in Sorcery TCG. The Gothic set just came out and I have been pretty obsessed with deck building over the last 24-48 hours, just tweaking and building a few decks just feverishly all day. I know I mostly make Flesh and Blood content, but just for the next month or two I'm going to try some Sorcery content because I really am excited about this set and want to show off these decks. And I think Sorcery is a pretty new game, so a lot of people are still getting into it and getting into deck building. So I want to give some ideas for that as well. So just a heads up there. Yeah, of course, when the next Flesh and Blood set comes out in I think January or February, I'll get into deck building a lot for that again. But for now, we're going to do some Gothic Sorcery deck building here. And I think I'm going to start with these first 4 videos with the pre-con heroes or avatars, I should say. Yeah, I think they are probably what most people are going to start with as well, since they're for the precons. But also, I think they are probably the 4 that are on the more powerful end of the 13 avatars from this set. A lot of them are pretty like gimmicky avatars. I don't know if I think they're more meant for like a cool factor, but you can definitely tell the precon avatars are on the more powerful end and meant for that more competitive play. So, we are going to start with Necromancer here. This is an Earth and Air deck, which I think is what Necromancer is really intended to be. And Necromancer has I'd say, pretty strong ability, where once per turn you can pay 1 resource to summon a skeleton token here. And skeleton tokens are just 1 power undeads that cannot move to block, or to defend, I should say. So they can defend if they're already at the site that's being attacked, but they can't move and defend if it's a site near them or a minion near them being attacked. They have to defend exactly where they are. So a bit of a downside, but overall quite strong to every turn just be able to pump into that and make a 1 power unit every turn. We're playing a lot of large power increases for all of our units, like Pendragon Banner, to increase that exponentially. So, Pendragon Banner here says nearby allies have +1 power while there are no enemies here. Here meaning wherever the banner is. So the banner needs to be like a little bit behind the rest of your units, being held by just like 1 skeleton or something that's behind everything with no other enemies there. And then your other units are in front of the banner, pushing forward, and they will all get this power buff. So we have more like that. I'll go through it all here, but that's kind of the general idea, is making a lot of skeleton tokens. We also have a lot of ways to make skeleton tokens with the rest of our deck, and then increasing the power of all of them. So you're not just paying 1 resource for 1 power every turn, you're paying 1 resource for 2 or 3 power, and that can really get out of hand with this huge, I think I called it Zombieball, because skeleton ball just doesn't sound very good to me. So it's just a huge ball of skeletons attacking your enemy. And that's really the strategy. I mean, it's a pretty simple kind of like tokeny aggro deck. I'd say it's not too complex to play, probably. You're really just making a big army of stuff and slowly marching it towards your opponent. The skeleton here does get summoned to wherever the Necromancer is, so you do kind of start towards the back of your sites if the Necromancer is at your starting site, and then you just march everything forward together. We are playing for auras. We're playing Crusade and Eclipse. Eclipse is the new version of this effect from Gothic. Crusade's the older version. They're both 2-cost auras with 2 threshold. We're not too worried about threshold in this deck in general, by the way. I mean, we have pretty good threshold with our sites, and I think in general, when you're just a 2 element deck, you really shouldn't be that concerned about threshold with just a few dual sites. Yeah, I think you're okay. I mean, I tried to keep it with it in mind, but I think you're not too worried about threshold in general. So I'm not going to mention it too much from now on. But yeah, Crusade, you can summon Earth minions to affected sites, and allied Earth minions occupying affected sites have +1 power. And then Eclipse is you may cast evil minions to affected sites. Evil allies occupying affected sites have +1 power. So we're really usually you would play these to put the aura on top of your enemy avatar to kind of give your stuff charge. You get to play the minions directly on top of their sites, and then the next turn get to attack the sites or their avatar right away. In this deck, that's not really what these are here for, actually. They're mostly for the power increase. So Eclipse in particular is nice because almost everything we have is evil since it's mostly undead. So that's nice. And then Crusade doesn't affect the skeleton tokens, I don't think, but I think almost all of our minions are Earth. So it's nice to give a buff to those Earth minions as well. Not, I think Eclipse is a bit better here since it buffs all the skeleton tokens, but these are mostly for that buff. I mean, it's pretty nice that for 4 sites where these auras are sitting, you get that power buff for your units. For the artifacts, we're playing Philosopher's Stone. I think this, yeah, you don't have to play this because it's kind of an expensive card. But I think in any deck that's trying to play 2 elements and wants to play like 2 most turns, it's pretty nice because you can get a 2 mana decrease that turn. So, you can play this on your first turn, and then if you have like a Novice Necromancer, which is air, and then like a Land Surveyor or Noisome Twosome, which is earth, you can play both of them on your next turn for just 2 mana, which is quite strong. Also, a mana discount is somewhat helpful for this deck in particular because it gives you that freed up mana for Necromancer ability. So even if you're only getting a 1 mana discount every turn with Philosopher's Stone, that still is an extra mana that you can then use for your Necromancer ability. So it's a bit nice there. It's the only one we're playing. I don't think we need too much. Like the cores don't really feel necessary. We don't need that much mana with this deck. We kind of stop at 6. That's it. And since we're playing some towers, sometimes you don't even need to get to 6 sites in particular. I think we're only playing, 4 cards that cost 6. So you can kind of stop at 5 sometimes even if you have some towers. We've got Torchhammer Trinket, just 1. Could maybe play 2, I suppose. But I guess if you cut stone, you might want the Trinket instead. It's nice. Of course, you can put it onto a skeleton and trade up with the skeleton, which is quite nice. So I think this is just a solid card for token decks. Manuscript is for some card draw. It lets us basically turn our 1 mana skeletons into a card from our deck. It's obviously delayed because they have to tap, so it would be the next turn. But if you just leave this manuscript where our avatar is and you summon the skeletons there, if you're having some card draw issues, you can use the manuscript to just sacrifice, have the skeleton pick up the manuscript and then sacrifice themselves to draw you a card. Toolbox we'll get a bit more into later. This card is pretty amazing. It might be the strongest card by itself that anyone can play, like artifact card, I should say, like no threshold card in Gothic. It's really strong. It's basically kind of like a slightly better common sense. Yeah, it's like a much better common sense, I guess you could say, because 1, it has no threshold, so anyone can play it. And 2, you don't have to keep the ordinary spells in your deck. They can be in your new collection, which is like your sideboard, which is much better because a lot of times you didn't want to draw those cards. Like the situational cards, you don't really want to have in your deck. You don't want to just naturally draw them. And also Toolbox, you can just leave sitting, like you can cast it whenever and just leave it held by your avatar until you actually want to sacrifice it. So really, really powerful. I mean, we would play 4 if we could, but it's only an exceptional. Really powerful. We can just leave this with our avatar and then sacrifice the toolbox whenever we want. It's much better than Silver Bullet. Silver Bullet has like a significant downside because you have to tap. The bearer has tap, sacrifice Silver Bullet. This unit may cast an exceptional spell from your collection. So it's a bit better because you can cast exceptional spells instead of ordinary. But tapping is pretty huge downside because if our avatar is using it, we can't play or draw a site that turn. But Toolbox doesn't have that. You just sacrifice the Toolbox, so no tapping involved. Really, really powerful. I think I would say a large amount of decks is going to be playing Toolbox. Like it's just quite strong. You could even put the Toolbox on a minion that's close to the enemy, and it kind of gives it spellcaster because they can cast whatever it is. They don't need to have spellcaster, so you can drop this on a skeleton that's right next to the enemy avatar, and then cast some proximity spell if they're on death's door. Cast a firebolts or something. I mean, we're not playing that, but something like that that cares about proximity, or even cast a a minion right on top of the enemy. So super flexible card, and I think a large portion of decks will be playing Toolbox. And then Pendragon Banner, I already kind of went over this. We're playing quite a lot of effects like this. We just want those mass board pumps to really increase the power of all of our tokens. Onto the minions, which is the majority of our deck. We've got Land Surveyor. it helped us draw a site, and it's just a 1 power dude. Um, it's pretty nice. I mean, we're pretty happy with just having 1 power guys with effects because they're going to get pumped up a bunch by our other pumps. So, yeah, I think Land Surveyor is great here. It's a bit better than Leprechaun is usually the alternative. Leprechaun has the upside of having 1 more power, but it's a death rattle, which I think the Genesis is a bit more important here because we really want to hit the 4th site right away. And sometimes Leprechaun, especially if you're giving it pumps, the Leprechaun's not going to die soon enough. So I think in this scenario, Land Surveyor is better. Noisome Twosome, it's kind of a 3 power card. In this scenario, it's it's a 2 for 2 power undead, but it has the death right of summon a skeleton token here. So it also will make a 1 power skeleton token after it dies. I don't think it's anything special, but 3 total power for 2 is pretty nice, and it's across multiple bodies, which is what we're looking for. We really want to create as many small minions as possible. We don't really want individual big minions. I think I have in the maybe board Entombed. This is a powerful undead that didn't make the cut because it's just one single body, which isn't really what we want because it's only getting the pumps once. But it is, a 2 for 3 undead, which is quite strong with burrowing. But I think it's better to have something like this, kind of 2 for 3 power also, but spread across 2 different units, which means the buffs will get doubled up, which is really nice. Similarly, we have Novice Necromancer. Not an undead, but he does on Genesis summon a skeleton token, which is of course nice, and he has Spellcaster. So two units, which is like I said, pretty nice. So if you have a Pendragon banner, they each get +1. So then this is 2 mana for 4 total power with just 1 pump, and then a second pump, it's 2 mana for 6 power. So really exponentially powerful there. We also have a small, I'm going to jump ahead in Minions a little bit here to talk about this. We have a small Spellcaster sub-theme because Vivian the Enchantress, I guess I said earlier that like Toolbox or one of these was the strongest card in our deck. But I think the strongest card overall in the deck is Vivian the Enchantress. She has the printed abilities of all other avatars and spellcasters in the realm wherever she is. And we're playing not just quite a few good spellcasters in our deck, but we have one of the best avatars to have the copy of with Vivian. Because yeah, she can then summon a skeleton token every turn as well. So once you have Vivian out, every turn you can spend 2 mana to make 2 skeleton tokens. That's really good, right? Like without using any cards from our deck, without having to draw anything, we just get to summon 2 1-power skeletons to march towards the enemy every turn with Vivian out. And that's not counting any good Genesis abilities she gets as a spellcaster copy. So we are playing the Novice Necromancer, which is obviously just okay if she copies it, but it's still nice that if you have a Novice Necromancer out, she'll have a Genesis of summoning a skeleton. We're also playing the Master Necromancer, which summons a skeleton token to each other adjacent site. So if he has 4 sites around him in the cardinal directions, he can summon up to 4 skeletons, and she can copy that as well. And then, of course, we're playing the Grandmaster Wizard, which draws 3 spells when he enters, which is probably the main one you want her to copy. But even if you don't have any spellcasters out, she's often, if you have like nothing else to play, I mean, if you have other plays, probably play them first, but like wait to draw a Grandmaster Wizard. But if she's like your last card in hand, she's a great play without any spellcasters out because we get the Necromancer ability twice per turn, like I was saying. So that's quite strong, being able to double up on that ability. Yeah, super, super powerful. So I would say that is definitely what you want, and we'll get back to the rest now. We're playing some cards just for the pure power of them. They don't really fit into the undead strategy, but we're playing all 3 of the elements, earth and air sirs, the knights from the Arthurian legend set. I think these are just quite strong. They're just really good. Sir Bors the Younger has ranged 2, which is really strong to shoot stuff from far away for 4 power. Yeah, that's quite good. You can just remove enemies or attack the enemy avatar from quite far away, keeping Sir Bors safe. And even better, he has enemies lose stealth. Infiltrate is a really powerful red magic, and Cerberus just completely cancels out Infiltrate, which is really good. And then we also have Sir Percival. His stats are quite high. It's 4 power and 5 toughness for just 4 mana, so that's already good enough. His ability is not super strong. An opponent chooses a site, and then when he enters it, he gets to draw a card, and then they get to choose another site. Often, like, you're not going to get to the site that they choose because they're going to just choose the most inconvenient site. So you're really playing him for the high power and toughness. I don't think he's like as necessary. He's just okay, but I think it's good enough. Sometimes you'll draw a card if you play him really early. Like if you can play him on the 3rd turn with a tower, usually like the site they choose is kind of easy-ish to get to, but later in the game, obviously they'll choose something really far out that you don't want to get to. And then Sir Galahad, yeah, also pretty decent stats, 3 power and 6 toughness. His strikes heal you, which is nice. We're not really playing any other healing in the deck because we're mostly the aggressor, but that's not bad. But he has actually kind of a board nearby ally effect, which is nice. Nearby allies take no damage from demons, spirits, and undead. There's probably going to be a decent uptick in demon, spirits, and undead in this meta because that is some of the main types from Gothic. It doesn't count monsters, which is the other big type, but pretty common types. And yeah, no damage from them at all is quite good. And it's all nearby allies, so all your tokens and everything will be immune to damage from demon, spirits, and undead. I think out of all the Sirs, he's probably the best one to keep just because of that second line is really, really strong to protect everything. In certain matchups, if they have no removal from him, for him, yeah, they just won't be able to beat him. Okay, now back to the rest of the minions. We have these 2 really powerful board-wide pump effects. We have Death Knight. He is 4 for 3 power. Other nearby undead allies have +1 power, so only affecting undead, but really good with all our skeleton tokens. And then House Arn Bannerman, he's 4 for only 2 power, so 1 less power than the Death Knight, but his is all other nearby allies have +1 power. So he's pretty good, and you can give him the Pendragon Banner, so he can just stay behind since he's a bit weaker and just buff everything up by 2. Very strong there. So those are, I think, our main. Yeah, I think that's all of our board-wide pump effects. We also have Returned King here. Just a unique, but he has all other undead have +1 power. This doesn't count nearby, which is quite nice. Because he's a little weaker with only 3, you might want to keep him back with your avatar, for example. But he just gives undead anywhere +1 power. He does give your opponent's undead +1 power, but then he has the second line that says you control all undead. So, I mean, in the mirror match, this will be pretty insane to get the Returned King because you can steal all your opponent's undead. But if they're just happening to play 1 or 2 undead cards and they're not a Necromancer, yeah, you get to yoink them with Returned King. Pretty strong there. And yeah, like I said, you might want to keep him back with your avatar because he is a bit weak, but he will give your undead anywhere +1 power. We have 1 Zombie Bruiser here. By itself, this card's kind of meh. It's just 4 for 4 power, which is not bad, but not amazing. We're not trying to go for like individually huge bodies, like I said. But he does have an effect that we kind of want at least 1 of. We could play 3 of this since it's exceptional, but I'm just playing 1 because I don't think you need a lot of copies. You can pay 4 mana to sacrifice a skeleton token and summon Zombie Bruiser from your cemetery there. This is the biggest of these effects. There's also some 1 mana and 2 mana versions of these, but I don't think usually it's worth swapping out the skeleton token. It's already a fine token on its own, and you're not getting like a huge increase in power. But this one is a pretty big increase. You know, you're going from 1 power. You're basically paying 4 mana to increase a token's power by 3 from the base 1 up to 4. Which is not a bad trade. It's more like if you have nothing else to do with that mana, this is probably where you would use it. I think usually you'd rather do something else with the mana, but yeah, late game, this is a pretty strong play. If you're both just top decking, you and your opponent are just top decking, you get to, for 5 mana, make a 4 power as much as you want. You know, as soon as they remove it, you can play it again. We went over all of these spellcasters and Sirs, Return King. Okay, so the last minion is Young Master Damien. This card's pretty broken. I'm kind of surprised they made something this strong. It's probably one of the strongest minions in the set for Gothic. It says, Genesis, summon 2 ghouls from your collection here. They can't die while nearby, which which is pretty crazy. Of course, he's only 2 power, but you get 2 ghouls from your collection, and ghouls are just no text, 3 power undead. But of course, undead is a nice synergy with our deck. Damien is also an undead, and in total, that is 3 bodies that have 2, 3, and 3 power. So it's a 6 for 8 power, which is already pretty good. And they can't die while nearby. So if you just leave Damien in the back and keep the ghouls marching forward, once again, Damien's another good user of the Pendragon banner to stay farther back. You just march those ghouls forward, they can't die, so they're just invincible ghouls. Really strong. I mean, even if your opponent kills Damien's to make it so the ghouls are vulnerable, you still then have 6 power left over with those 2 ghouls, and everything's undead, so they get all your undead buffs. Yeah, it's like I mean, I think it's probably an even better top end than Returned King or Grandmaster Wizard for this deck. Like, it's just so much power across 3 bodies. So, if you have just one buff effect, then it's a 3, a 4, and a 4, which is huge. So really, really powerful. Yeah, I mean, I think you're hoping to draw Young Master Damien every game if you can, once you get to 6. Okay, magics, and then we'll end with sights. Hopefully the video will be under 30 minutes. I'll try to go through the rest pretty quickly here. Bone Spear, really good card. Sacrifice an undead to shoot a projectile from its location that deals 3 damage. Basically is 2 mana for 3 damage, so it's kind of like a lightning strike or a firebolt or something, but you get to shoot it from the undead's location is a nice advantage. So you can kind of be a bit closer and position a bit better for that. Also, you're making an undead every turn anyways, and so it's yeah, really only 1 mana because you're gonna have so many undead to mess with. Browse, this is just a unique magic you want for any air deck. It's just really good. Necropotence, this card's pretty insane. For only 1 mana, you give a nearby allied undead plus 3 power this turn. Usually we're not that interested in temporary buffs in sorcery, but 1 for 3 is really insane rate in terms of stats. So we can just increase one of our skeleton tokens on the base up to 4 power and trade really easily either into another 4 power unit from the enemy or even just hit a 3 power enemy unit and then survive that. So really, really strong. I think there's a card called, what is it, like Overpower or something that has never really seen any play. Yeah, this is give an ally plus 2 power this turn. This card's never really seen any play, even though it's similar, but I think that extra 1 power is just enough to kind of push it over the edge into playability. We'll see. Might not be good enough still, but I think it could be. Tithe, also kind of a card like Browse that you want in any Earth deck. Exhume, this card, we don't really care about the first part, which is unburrow everything at target land site. I guess that's nice if they have like a hidden root spider or a hidden, yeah, if their opponent has burrowed something there that they want to protect, that's kind of good. But the main part is you summon 2 skeleton tokens there. So it's also any site, so you can summon them right on top of the enemy if you need to get close. And two mana for 2 tokens is kind of exactly what we need, just like our Novice Necromancer. Yeah, it's mostly for that. 2 mana for 2 tokens. Kiss of Death can be cast by spirits on undead, so really nice that our undead can cast it, and it kills target minion here. So it has to be at the site that the undead is at, but hopefully we will just have the board completely covered in millions of little 1 power undead units, and so we can just march that skeleton token right onto the site the enemy is, and then Kiss of Death it. So really good removal. Undead Ambush, summon a skeleton token to each other site adjacent to target enemy. So hopefully this is 4 tokens for 3 mana, which is really, really good. If you have an enemy that has 4 sites around them, really good there. Gigantism, this is also in a lot of Earth decks. Just gives an allied unit plus 6 power this turn for either a huge trade up or just to smack the opponent for usually lethal damage on a site or directly. So really nice. Just temporary buff. This one is usually played just because plus 6 is so strong. And then Earthquake, this is also played in most Earth decks as some removal. I was kind of not sure about including this actually. I'm still not sure because board wipes are kind of the opposite of what we want. And if we're on the opponent, this is not super useful. I think this is more like a emergency button if you're on the back foot. It lets you, yeah, kind of just remove your opponent's stuff and then start fresh. Or if they've like killed all your units and have some left and they had a huge advantage, then you can Earthquake. But typically, maybe we only want one of this, I think. I'm not sure, but yeah, often you're not going to want to cast this because it's going to kill all your own units. Then ending with sights, the strongest one, this might be played I think in like a lot of Earth decks, not even just undead decks, is Boulevard of Bones. Whenever another sight is played to an adjacent square, summon a skeleton token there. This is pretty crazy. I mean, if you can usually play, at least 3 adjacent uh, squares to this, and yeah, that's for no mana at all, 3 power from a sight. If you get 3 skeleton tokens on those sites, which will normally happen. So if you start the game, you play your base site, and then the second turn you play Boulevard of Bones forward. When your opponent plays forwarded well, you get a skeleton token on their site, and then when you play on either side of the Boulevard of Bones, you also get skeleton tokens there. So 3 power for free. Yeah, pretty broken. City of Souls, I think because we're an aggro deck, we can probably play this. I'm a bit unsure, but it doesn't provide any threshold, but if you have any earth threshold, it provides 2 mana instead of 1, but your enemies can redirect damage dealt to the site to any unit. So if they hit the site, they can redirect that damage away from the site to one of your units. But I don't think they're going to be attacking your sites very often because you're the aggressor. So hopefully that's not an issue. Also, if they're redirecting damage away from you to one of your units, that's maybe okay as well. We're playing one of each tower like normal. Playing Glastonbury Chore for the extra mana. Just one haystack. I mean, you don't really want multiples of this effect, but it's nice if you find it to kind of shut down your opponent's deck searches. The tower, just one lookout as well. You don't really need multiples of this effect either. You could play 4 of this, but I think we have so many good sites, we're just playing 1. Mirror Realm, I mean, I would love to Mirror Realm a 3rd Boulevard of Bones, so that's what I'm hoping for. Mount Usar Sanctuary, this is a really strong unique site from the new set. If you have 4 Earth Thresholds, so kind of later in the game, that's when you want this effect anyways. When your avatar arrives at Death's Door, they flee here and gain ward, which is really strong. Especially in certain matchups, like if you're against an Archimago who has a bit trouble finishing on Death's Door if they only have like 1 magic left to do it, the ward will really cancel it out. So ward on Death's Door is really good, and if you have this far back, fleeing there is nice. Mostly just getting a free ward when you hit Death's Door is a huge get out of jail free button. 2 of the other best sites in the deck after Boulevard of Bones are Open Grave and Open Mausoleum. They have Genesis. You may pay 1 mana to summon a skeleton token here. Yeah, it's nice. It's kind of like a village, but for skeleton tokens, but they come in both thresholds, which is nice. Of course, skeletons are, I guess, slightly worse than foot soldiers, but in our deck, we have a lot more undead synergy, so we're okay with that. Often on turn 2, this is a pretty great play because you can just pay 1 mana for the skeleton token here and 1 mana for your Necromancer, and then you've been able to use all of your mana really effectively without spending any cards. So really nice turn 2 play. I would try to, if you can, play these on turn 2 when you have them. Don't play them on turn 1, obviously, if you can help it, because you want to basically every turn 1 start with your Necromancer ability. Rift Valley is always pretty good in aggro decks to be able to pull apart a row and put this forward to put your units right in front of the enemy avatar. Sold Out Cemetery, a nice undead synergy card. Yeah, when an undead enters the site, you can push another undead here 1 step away. So this is a good card to have as the base under your avatar. Every time you summon that undead for the turn, you can push the one from the previous turn forward, giving it an extra +1 movement, basically. I have no idea if these cards are good. They're probably not, but these are the 2 for fun sites in the deck, basically, is the new Base of Babel and Apex of Babel. Base of Babel is just an Earth site. I mean, the thing is they're fine on their own, right? Because they still just provide 1 mana and 1 threshold. But Base of Babel is an Earth site that lets you play later Apex of Babel on top of it. And when you build this, you draw a spell, and then you can cast a spell for free. So you kind of lose your site play for that turn because you're not gaining any extra mana. You're just switching an Earth site to an Air site. But you do draw a spell, and you get to cast a spell for free. So if you can cast one of your 6 costs for free, that's a nice way to do it without having to get to 5 sites as well. I mean, early on, if you can do this on like your 2nd or 3rd turn, of course, you're not increasing your mana for that turn, but you can get a huge power spike by playing like Young Master Damien on, even like your 2nd turn. It could be pretty crazy. So this might not make the final cut, but I think it's quite good for now and worth testing at least how good it feels. Manor of Dapperel Hill, this is the air version. There's one of each element where it has like a 4 threshold unique site. This one's also quite good to have forward. This says once on your turn, this may deal 3 damage to target enemy here to heal you 3. So it makes it so enemies really don't want to hang out on this site once you have 4 air thresholds. Of course, the 3 windmills, and then the Warmalo Tump. This is nice to protect your cemetery since we're playing just some very light cemetery synergy with Zombie Bruiser, but doesn't hurt to protect it with this site. That is the deck. Oh, I'll go over the collection quickly because we've got the 3 toolbox. So we have the 2 ghouls in the collection. That's necessary for the Young Master Damien. And then the rest are 8 ordinary cards to use situationally with these toolboxes. The first new one is Zap. This is really fun because it just deals 1 damage to target unit no matter where this is. No matter where they are, I should say, which is pretty fun if they're on Death's Door because you could just boop, direct 1 damage to the enemy. Avatar, yeah, that's mostly what Zap is here, is to kill them on Death's Door. Blink, if you need that extra movement and card draw. We have 1 of Dispel and Disenchant. Often you'll want 2 in a game, but it's kind of nice also if you, for some reason, are missing Threshold to have 1 of each just to be safe. Gift of the Wolf. This one I'm kind of unsure on, but it could be fun. It gives an allied minion +2 power this turn, so if you want to do like a trade up in power with 1 of your tokens, that's nice. And you also draw a spell, so it can't be that bad, right? Lightning Bolt. Yeah, it's Lightning Bolt. It's good. Mortality is a pretty situational card as well, but it could be nice. You kill all mortal minions at target location at up to 2 steps away. You have to be careful because we're playing quite a bit of mortals. But yeah, if your opponent has a really expensive mortal or multiple mortals on one site, Mortality doesn't really see any play because usually drawing this when your opponent has no mortals out is pretty bad. But with Toolbox now, this will see a lot more play because it just takes up 1 site outside of 1 slot in your collection outside of your deck. And yeah, can be a huge blowout sometimes. And then Berry, yeah, it's Berry. It's a really good ordinary spell. So I think Toolbox is really strong here with that. You can mess around with the collection a lot, obviously, but I would recommend at least trying out the 3 toolboxes to start and messing with the ordinary. You only get 8 slots though, because you're basically always going to play Young Master Damien in this deck for the 2 ghouls in the sideboard, because he's just so broken, like really insane in this deck. That is Necromancer Zombieball. I hope you enjoyed the deck tech. I hope it was good. It's my first one. I'm going to be filming a lot more today for the other pre-con avatars, and then maybe Interrogator as well, because he's probably the strongest avatar that's not one of the pre-cons. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you like Sorcery or if you're going to play it, if you are opening any Gothic. And yeah, I'll be back to Flesh and Blood content soon. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you next time.